The following podcast is a production focused on storytelling, exploring new ttrpg systems and their supplements. This podcast is not sponsored by any of the systems or their owners and is meant to be a fun, interactive book club. Respective credits for songs, sound effects, and resources are listed within the description or details. And with that, please enjoy, adventurer. Welcome to the Fables and Tables. Nope, gotta reverse that because this is a licensing snafu. Welcome to the Tables and Fables podcast, the interactive ttrpg book club where we pick up new mechanics, bumble through systems, and ultimately tell fun stories together. I am your primarian, librarian, your DM, GM, and absent-minded professor, Tim, also known as Curbs. Joining me on this particular adventure will be my two co-hosts. Please introduce yourselves.
Hey, I am Collin, also known as Crash, as my other handle.
Hello, hello. I am Amanda, aka, well, actually, Wolf, aka Amanda.
Go by Wolf first.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
So, we had discussed this idea of starting a podcast, or at least rather, I had been trying to convince people to start a podcast, as most people my age with my type of hat want to do so in their later age of just like, hey, let's start a podcast, guys. But I think one thing, the reason we're doing this, or rather, I want to do this with some friends, is that I want to explore more systems. As kind of the little blurb at the beginning goes, is that I want to explore more systems with my friends, and I want to have fun doing so. So stretching those creative muscles, as it were, while also exploring new games to play. We aren't exclusively going to be doing D&D, but we will be attempting to hop from respective systems depending on the arc or story that we're trying to tell. We are currently doing, for this first arc, which is going to be called Plaguelands, if you're tuning in, with D&D, but we're going to be adding a special, unique flair on it. And as you're listening, you'll either determine if this is one of the dumbest ideas you've ever heard of, or you might find something intriguing about it. So let's see what happens. The worst part about this is that if you guys do roll up these characters and you spend all this time doing backstory, depending on the absurdity that we're rolling up here, they may die unintentionally just because of how we're rolling them up. As I stated, what we're going to be doing here is it's taking place, at least we're calling this arc Plaguelands. It's taking place in the fictional world of Arta, which is of my own design, within a place called Clusterrock, which is a town that's located within the Stillwake Marsh. It's kind of a decrepit, oppressed town with an empire above it, a dwarven empire, where all sorts of infectious people are sent to either die or potentially be used as ways to study the strange magical miasma that permeates much of the marshlands. And why I was saying this would be a dumb idea is more so just how we are going to be acquiring our base skill scores, our ability scores. Now, ordinarily, there are three methods in D&D to obtain your ability scores. In 5e, there is the standard array, the point buy, and the rolling for stats. Standard array, for some of you that don't know, maybe you do know this. If this is all old hat to you, I apologize. Don't skip this part. We have to at least be somewhat informative, I would feel, in this podcast. So please stick around for me to read the spiel. It's typically the most balanced system. The standard array is where it provides the ability scores of 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8 to allocate where you wish. This is usually a bit easier for new players because it allows them to simply just kind of go, oh, well, I get a plus this to this, so then I'll just use this ability score to go into there, and makes it a little bit easier when you're creating your character. Contrarily, there's the other one, which is more for min-maxers, I feel, which is the point buy, which gives you more control over your character's ability scores. You get 27 points to spend on ability score points, and certain ability scores cost a certain amount of points. So this is very much a system that for people to go, well, if I want to get a negative here, I could go ahead and do a positive here if I put it here. So
all those points run out so fast too.
They do with point buy. So not both of those methods. Standard array, I've done more than point buy. Point buy, I'm not a huge fan of. What about you guys? I mean, from the two,
I've done this. I've done standard array as well as point buy, and I liked standard array a little bit better because with point buy, I was just like, "Oh, okay, this point is going to go here, and I'm going to need this point. I don't think I need that in charisma, but maybe I spent too much time trying to craft the perfect thing. Where with standard array, I'm going to put this number here, put that number there. Manual rolling is the other fun method, which is just go with what the dice give you.
Between the two, I would probably go with the standard array just because it takes more of the guesswork out of it for me, but I'm always up for the chaos. So
Which actually, as you both were saying, brings us to the final method that is used, which is rolling for stats, which is what we are going to be using in a different way today. But typically, for rolling for stats is something I usually prefer, same as you, in that it creates a bit more interesting characters at times, and it gives you a bit more thought to kind of how, well, I'm playing a wizard. Why do I have such a low intelligence score? So how did that happen? So really, I think it creates more interesting characters and gives you the more unique possibilities of potentially role play or even just thinking about character design at times. With the rolling for stats, you typically would do 4d6, drop the lowest out of the 4d6, and then you repeat for each respective ability score. So you roll like a 15 for strength, a 12 for the dexterity, etc. Here is a terrible idea that we are doing.
Oh,
I have
yes.
no memory of when we talked about this, but there was this idea of doing a challenge one shot, which this may turn into that, who knows, where we would roll 4d6 and drop the highest. The idea being is that these would be underdog heroes. And when I started to think about it more, the idea of the Plaguelands, of basically being these characters that are afflicted with some sort of disease, whether they got the disease and now are at Clusterrock or have grown up here and they are just struggling with this debilitating disease, this would be kind of the essence of what this would be for the Plaguelands for that ability score. So yeah, that's going to be one of the major things we're going to be doing in here. The other thing, which I feel might balance it out a little bit more, is we are going to be using what's known as Valda's Spire of Secrets that was done by Mage Hand Press. It is a 5e compatible third-party source book, which if you ever get the chance to, I would highly recommend to explore more third-party source books. We're going to try to do that a little bit more here on the podcast at times, because that's kind of the purpose of this, is an interactive book club. And this was, let me scroll down here so I can look at the lead designers. So there was Michael Hollick with additional design by Alexander Binns, Jaron Mortimer, Matthew Pennell, Ben Huffman, Benjamin Richardson, Jason Sinclair, Justin Faulkner, Benjamin Gita, Max Wartell, and the editor was Michael Hollick. There's also some beautiful designs in here by Martin Kirby Jackson, as well as some other interior illustrations by Lucas Ferreira, Martin Kirby, Mariana Livrays, Jordy Knop, Augustin Marciliak, Monique Schleider, and Loot Tavern. So I apologize if I got any of that wrong, but essentially, I would recommend, if anyone has the ability to pick this up, is that the PDF is only $30 at this time upon Mage Hand Press. There was a Kickstarter for this a while back, I think in 2020 or 2021. There still isn't a physical book for this, but you can still just get the PDF for $30, which, with all the options available in here, it's kind of a steal. And one of the mechanics we're going to be using is a variant rule called Monstrous Grafts.
Which also what a great name for this. I took a look at it from what you sent me, and it looks incredible.
The Monstrous Grafts or Valdas?
Just the Valda's Spire of Secrets in general. It's got a lot to just increase in classes and subclasses. Even some of the races that they include in there. It's really, I definitely highly recommend it. It warned that you might have a plethora of too many characters after owning the book, which I would definitely say that's probably going to be a thing because there's just so many good ideas within it.
Rolling characters, I feel, is just kind of the new modern adult, like creating your OCs from DeviantArt back in the day. It just feels like that, you know? I've just constantly gotten all these. And the worst part is, too, is that you never get a chance to play most of these characters. So hoping to
they
explore
sit
that
on
a
the
bit
shelf,
more.
beautiful and unused.
Yeah. But essentially, what this is we'll also be using a little bit of maybe those subclasses here in this, is that it's a variant rule set where people can basically Frankenstein monster bits upon body slots, arms, external, head, internal, or legs. And I'm just now realizing, looking at internal, oh dear God, that sounds horrifying. So
Is it internal?
there's an
Oh,
internal body slot, which, oh, okay, that's going to be fun to explore potentially if we get to that.
right.
I mean, who doesn't want sparkly new insides? Sounds like a blast.
Well, here's the thing: you're basically doing self-surgery or entrusting someone else to do this for you. But essentially, what this is that it allows you to harvest monster parts from fresh corpses within 48 hours, or those that are preserved via the gentle repose spell or something similar. Harvesting takes about 10 minutes and is one graft per corpse. You can't just get a bunch of different grafts from one corpse. It's just you got to choose the one thing. And if the body part is too large or too small, it is alchemically made to fit. At least that's what the terminology states here. So some kind of magical alchemical thing that you do or the doctor does that basically allows you to graft this material to you. You can't harvest tiny or gargantuan creatures though. So you can't just get a fairy and get a tiny little fairy arm and then have little tiny arms. Which again,
Oh
it's made to fit.
man, that was on my list.
You got a
I mean,
big
I
head.
can't wear Tarrasque horns as I'm walking the plane.
No, I don't think you can. We could try to work with that, but I imagine that your neck muscles would have to be substantially larger.
Especially
Um,
since I'm playing a rat folk. That'd be impressive.
right. So the mechanic is that you take 1 hour to attach the graft. It requires a healer's kit, alchemist supplies, and a knife or access to someone with those tools, as well as a proficiency in medicine skill or those tools to perform the operation. It's an intense operation, obviously, because you are grafting a different body part to yourself. When you install this body part or whatever into the slot, you lose half your hit points and all of your hit dice after this operation. Not forever, though. For 24 hours after the install, you can't use the grafted abilities, and replacing a graft in the same slot takes 30 minutes, and you don't lose hit dice. So, kind of a situation where you've gotten used to it. So, you still have some negative effects associated with it, but you don't lose all your hit dice, and it takes a little bit less time to do so. Right off the bat, for this rolling method, you're going to be doing what we're going to be doing. And then also, you all will get your proficiency in medicine. So, that's just given to you right off the bat for your character proficiency in medicine, and also as part of what's going to be happening for your characters, you will also have the alchemist supplies and the healer's kit, as well as a surgeon's knife or scalpel that you have in just your materials. With that being said, yeah, how do people feel about this
I
idea?
am so ready to just just have find some really good these legs are gonna work just perfectly, and I'm so excited for rolling the 46 and dropping the highest. I really am interested in seeing how much of an underdog, how sickly is this person that I'm gonna play is gonna be.
The dice are rarely kind to me. I am excited to try this, but it's gonna go bad. I
Yeah,
am
yeah.
I'm not
Unfortunately,
gonna
I don't mean to call you out. You do have a little bit of a reputation, unfortunately. I have the same problem that happens to me,
Yep.
but it's the dice, the
You
dice.
know, I could see
dice
it if
giveth and
this is
taketh away.
where I could see this is where all of a sudden all of the luck just pours on,
See, but
outpouring.
now that you've said this, it is now not going to happen. That's how fate works, sir.
Also,
Oh, excuse me.
I did mention. I don't know if I forgot to mention that you will get the ability to re-roll. I will say this: you'll be able to re-roll once. All right,
Perfect.
and you can then decide where you want to allocate these scores.
That's all I
So
need.
first up, so why don't we go ahead and just get it all set up? So why don't who wants to go first? Or just rolling the numbers.
Go for it.
I can go ahead and start with the stat rolling then.
Okay.
I'll just go ahead and just start rolling up the digits here. I've got my D6 all set. And starting with the... All right, you always got to start with the first roll. Here we go.
What do you get?
All right, that's a 6.
It's
It
all
was
together a
that's
six,
a
eh?
total of 6. I had a 2, a 2, a 1, 2, and a 3.
We're off to a good
Uh,
start.
that's that's perfect.
In the
Rolling
arms of the ancients.
rolling that again. Oh, I got a 7.
It's
It's going up. It's trending upward. This is
okay.
good.
Okay.
Third ability. There we go. Oh, it keeps going up. It's an 8. It is climbing
Okay.
slowly.
All right.
I'm okay. Rolling for the fourth stat here.
Now, are
Oh,
you doing these one after the other? Are you saying like 6 is strength, or are you just waiting to allocate?
I am just doing the ability scores first and then waiting to
Oh,
allocate.
okay. I just want to make sure that you're
Oh, thank
Yeah,
goodness. I
6.
thought that was like,
It's
please be
for
11.
now. I'm just getting them out of the way so I can just allocate them.
sure.
Bam, bam, bam. So first one was 6, then 7, then 8. And I will use my first
Well,
reroll
really, what was
as
this
it
one?
was a 3. 3 ones.
Oh,
That's
wow.
yeah.
Okay.
That is.
Go.
I will utilize my first reroll. My
Okay.
only
Yep.
reroll. That's much better. Yes, this one is a 10, as a 3, 3, and a 4.
Good. Okay.
That is very good. That's a big win right there. 2, 3, 4. The fifth one. Here we go. Fifth ability score. Oh my! A 5, a 4, and a 3. That is a 12. It
Oh.
really is just trending upward here. And then finally, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The sixth and final ability score. Drum roll, please. Oh my! That is a 4, a 4, and a 4 to end with. So that is a 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 12 for
Okay.
my ability
All right.
scores.
All things
The
considered.
class, yeah, this is insanely good.
Yeah.
Except for
We'll wait on your class
Yep.
for a minute here while
Yeah,
Amanda
sure.
rolls up hers. So Amanda, go ahead and roll up yours.
I am afraid. Ooh, okay. So dropping the oh no,
Highest.
dropping the highest. No, okay. 4, 4, and 1.
Hmm,
Okay. 9.
Let's start on a 6. Another 4, 4, and 1.
9.
Thank you for
nice.
helping the person who doesn't math. Never seen so many 6s in my life. Okay, 6, 4, and 1, so 11.
Nice.
Ooh, a 5, 4, and 1, so 10.
These are sounding pretty good so far.
Not bad, yeah, actually.
You said it out loud. I had to say it out loud. Okay, 3, 4, and 2, so 9.
Okay.
Yes, that is 9. Okay.
And then the final one.
So that was a 4, 1, and a 2,
7.
7. So re-rolling that one, I think.
Okay.
Nice. That was perfect.
3, 3, and 2. So
Oh,
8.
Okay.
All right.
yeah.
There it is.
Not too bad. I mean, those are
Terrible.
unfortunately Colin's got a few negatives. I think actually you've got at least a couple of negative ones too, depending on I gotta remember the scores for that.
I have to always
But
pull up the chart.
yeah, not too bad. It was not as bad as I was thinking. But I mean, from what I was thinking we were discussing is we were going to be potentially going up to level 3. So now that we've kind of figured out the ability scores, yeah, so based off of this here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read here. This might be a little bit more theatrical when the final podcast comes out, but I'm going to read this. And based off of this might influence kind of a little bit more of what you might be deciding your character is going to be doing. And also, I'll go into a little bit more detail of what your purpose of your character is in
Interesting.
this scenario here.
Ominous.
As the morning sun rises in the east, your eyes squint in slight discomfort at the light, murky reflection upon the shores of the Stillwake Marsh. Around you are numerous others like yourself, shaking, decrepit, infirm, dying. Individuals afflicted with all manner of disease from the Magical Miasma that has permeated the bog air for nearly 140 years. Most had been sent here to die by means of purification and quarantine. Others made the pilgrimage to join those similar to themselves, and rarer still were the ones that were born here, living out a meager existence day by day. You look around and give a small sigh. Nothing would change here. The world of Arta was decaying. Your kind were merely closer than most to realizing it. It wasn't until you saw the strange cloaked figure approaching in the morning fog, their long, gangly pale arms using a guiding pole to drag their tiny raft towards the settlement of Clusterrock. They were tall, imposing, mysterious, but strangely friendly in their manner. When they had made beach to your half-sunk town, they set about providing small poultices, lotions, and mixtures, all which smelled of mint, copper, strange incense, and further foreign smells. Not an uncommon sight for Clusterrock. Of course, numerous students of medicine around the world had come here to study the miasma, seeking perhaps an answer to how it came to be and perhaps even a cure. The only odd thing was that most students and doctors arrived by the Tempest Gates. This peculiar creature had arrived by their lonesome, by boat, from the marsh. It was your curiosity to this individual that they finally approached you, offering a hand to join them in securing materials needed for their studies.
Join me, they said, and I guarantee that a solution can be found for your affliction.
Of course, what else did you have to lose? As a bit of clarification, is that you are going to be under the Order of the Pale Raven in service of Doctor Honeyeater, a mysterious individual of long, gangly appearance, dressed in all champagne white garb, with a very long, kind of beaked mask and big black glass eyes that you aren't able to see what their true form is beneath all these cloaks. And they are the ones that taught you how to do this monstrous grafting ability. They're the ones that taught you how to explore that of adapting to the environment and creating this way to survive. So pretty much what you guys are assistants to the doctor. You are allowed to go out into the marshlands past Clusterrock because most people are not allowed to leave the city unless of certain visas or certain excuses. And because of his standing, or because of their standing rather in the community, you are able to leave a bit further into the marshlands. So that is what you are. You are servants to that of Dr. Honeyeater in the Order of the Pale Raven. I mean, so that's just the basics for it. So then I guess this would lead to how you guys are going to be deciding what characters you're going to be playing and kind of the general backstories associated with those that would be kind of playing into this. I mean, this is a session 0, so this is going to be discussion time, and we can take as long as we need to kind of go over these specifics.
Interesting. All right.
Mhm.
Well, that so far, I guess now I have to make sure that I assign the ability scores that I just rolled, which a lot of it is going to make sense, especially for the lower ones, as I'm going to be playing a character named Benjamin, a shifter who was discarded and left at Clusterrock with nothing but a note, and he's just lived there. He's going to be I'm going to be playing the fighter class with one of the subclasses from Valda's. I just have to kind of relook at this beautiful array of numbers in front of me here. Um,
So many
as
decisions and choices.
uh, of with a fighter, I'm going to go ahead and just I did have two 12s. I'll go ahead and just I think just to be safe, maybe it'll be a glass cannon. I'll just put that 12 in one of the 12s in strength, and then the other 12 in the Constitution. As that 6 is going to go into their dexterity, and I'm going to have the 7 go into their wisdom. They're not a very wise person. And the 8 in the charisma, they're definitely not very charismatic either. With those, that seems like a good spread there. But with will we be starting at first level?
I think what we'll do here, just to give you guys a bit more of a fighting chance, not to say that I'm going out of my way to
Fine.
kill you. But yeah, I would say that we'll go to level 3. So any abilities associated that you would get from your subclass and your regular class and stuff I think we'd do that here.
Okay. With the subclass from fighter, I said I was also choosing one from the Spire of Secrets. And I went with a subclass that was called the Bone Knight. Now, Benjamin, his race is a shifter. He's very thin build, about 5'10", 5'11". He's already a very bony individual, not a lot of meat on his bones. Um, he's got kind of dark brown, almost black hair, long, stringy, a little just hanging off of his head at this point. It's not a beautiful, full, luscious head of hair.
There's not many
And
products, I would assume, in the marsh to help you with the
no,
luxurious locks.
no.
Maybe he's born with it.
And with the Bone Knight, the Bone Knight utilizes their bones as their weapons. As so instead of having a physical short sword, he would be able to summon a short sword from his bones.
So, maybe because I haven't really fully looked at this, so I wanted
Mhm.
to get a little bit of clarification here. So,
Yes.
is it a situation where you just are running around with a loose leg or something? Like you pull out the bone from your leg and you got a sword, but then your leg is flopping like a noodle behind you, or what? How does that? Is it just created, or what's going on?
So what happens is that the bone, it extends and grows from the palm or from the wrists.
Oh, okay.
And so there's Benjamin wears these kind of tattered gloves,
Okay.
as without them you would very clearly and plainly see the slits in his palm and in his wrists on where the bones protrude. His elbows are very pointed and bony, more so than a normal person would be. His knees, if he wasn't wearing his shirt, you'd see his ribs are very pronounced. And when he unsheathes his sword, let's say a long sword, it would stick straight out from the palm, extending out the length of a long sword.
Okay.
As with this subclass, as I was reading into it, apparently there are a couple of ways that this is obtained. One through a long-standing ritual and a very painful ritual that is undergone to become what is known as an Osteoth, Osteoth. And they undergo this long, painful ritual on purpose to become that of a Bone Knight. On the other spectrum, there are those that attempt to replicate it through alchemist means, with what was said a 50% chance of success. And that was Benjamin. Benjamin was one of the, dice roll that was able to be successful of somebody trying to replicate that process.
Sure. Given my description that I just read and everything like that, with kind of the association that you have with Doctor Honeyeater, would you say it's too far reaching to say that Doctor Honeyeater was the one that helped turn you into this osteopath?
I would say the Osteoth. I think he would be knowledgeable of it, definitely. As before that, Benjamin just was constantly in pain with his bones, as he
Sure.
I initially was thinking that he was going to be he was living with very weak and brittle bones, and I would say if Doctor Honeyeater said I can help you with that if you help me, and or something maybe close to that, which is how I was now able to utilize my bones. They're not weak and brittle, but it's still a painful process. It's
Right.
bones protruding from you is not a very um, non-painful experience, as striking something with your own bone is uncomfortable at best.
Right. Wait, so when you take out this, is it still attached to you when you're wielding this? Or
Yes, the blades, they sprout from me. They would sprout from
So
my body.
it's a full on like Wolverine origins situation, right?
Pretty much, yes. They're coming from within, and
Uh,
I can't be. These weapons cannot be disarmed. You can retract these weapons as you would sheath a weapon.
oh my gosh. Okay, so I think I will preface this at some point when we do fully release this episode that spoiler or not spoiler, preface. So because of the nature of it being plague, disease, and other things, it's gonna get a bit gross and a bit weenie, people. So just be aware of that. I'll be sure to do a warning. Oh, I thought it would be a situation where you take it out, it's like it's now just it's a bone sword. Like, no, oh,
It's
okay.
still attached when I'm swinging it. It's still attached.
Okay. All right.
Further, further into it, as the bone weapons, they have different statistics depending on which one that I summoned. I'll call it summoning. As the long sword, it would come from the palm. The short sword would come from the wrist. And then a scimitar is those the choice of statistics I was going to give and stick with a long sword. It didn't really go into much detail on whether or not it could be a sword of whichever choosing,
Right.
which I thought I'd pass by you because it just says the bone weapons have your choice of the statistics of a longsword, short sword, or scimitar, which makes it sound like you pick one, and that is the one that is your sword.
Let me see here. I'm just gonna quickly look at this. So just to make sure also, so are you fine with the idea then that Dr. Honeyeater would have assisted you in kind of getting you to become this osteo?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I would have thought maybe even Benjamin would have asked, um, for any help with
Sure.
his melody.
Third level, you have total control of your skeletal structure, allowing you to drop blades. Da, 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 da.
That's the adamant ivory for his. If someone strikes at him, his bones will.
Oh, yours are AC. Okay.
Yeah.
Third level, you can drop plates of bone from your skin. Oh, jeez. Okay. So you don't need. Oh, wow. So you don't even need armor. You can just full on just. You basically become
it up.
Spike from X-Men Evolution then.
Yes, I guess so.
Yeah, he sprouts all those bone plates and stuff.
I'd imagine
Okay.
if somebody would go to strike, he would turn himself away or raise an arm, and you see his bone kind of go into place and harden
Oh, I
as
see that
someone
here.
strikes at him.
Yeah, I see the reaction. Okay, cool. So I'm just looking at the bone blades here. The bone sword weapons have your choice as statistics and longsword. Um, I think so. From what I understand here, I'm guessing that you. Yeah, so basically, I think when you summon the bone blade, you just say that like the thing that I am summoning is a scimitar, or the thing I'm summoning is a short sword, because
Got
I
it. Okay.
believe each one has different statistics associated with. Because I don't think a scimitar is a.
I think that's
Yeah,
slashing. It might be, and
yeah,
it also might be finesse.
because one is
It could be.
piercing. Oh, so that's it. So properties finesse as well. So that basically means that you can decide dex, which I don't know if you want to use your dex because you're basically doing a dump stat of dex. It sounds like, with a 6. So
Right. Yes.
you may not want to do that. But
No.
okay, so I think you basically I think you just tell me when you're summoning. It's like it's a short sword, it's a long sword, it's a scimitar. That way we know what the weapon is, because I don't see anything here saying that you can only choose one. So I think we'll just say that you just tell me what it is when you're summoning it.
Right. An additional that they have as the bone blades, an additional part of it is that additionally, once per turn, when you hit a creature with a bone weapon, you can expend a hit die to extend the bone into the target. And you add the hit die and your Constitution modifier to the weapon's damage roll. So you are taking your vitality to extend your bone into whoever you're striking. And it looks like in that second, it says starting at 7th level when your blades are considered magical. Under that, it says additionally. So I don't
So
know if that's something
that's
that happens at 7th
That's
or
at
if it's just.
that's starting at 7th level, your blades count as
Yes.
magical, and additionally, once returned, that's a 7th level thing, so you wouldn't
Yeah,
have
so
that.
once that. If Benjamin survives that long, he'll be able to gain more control of shifting his bones.
That's nice. That's nice.
For
Uh,
flavor, are these juicy bones or are they like pearly white bones? Like,
oh, it's
They're the bones
ooh,
themselves. I'd have to say they're probably just like it's not pearly white. It would have to be something more like like a beige beige tone of the bones, and when they extend, you can see just
blood.
strips of
it,
red,
it's sticking.
strikes of red,
Cool.
streaks maybe,
Or, yeah.
because you just see his bones form into a point. It's not like it doesn't look like a perfectly formed short sword. It just would be
Right.
just jagged bone. Um,
Remarkable craftsmanship.
Oh, the weight of the pommel across the femur there, that's amazing.
uh, a thing about Benjamin, he's not really he doesn't he's in terms of fighting, and I did roll this when I was trying to come up with the character earlier throughout the week, is that in terms of a fight, if he's outnumbered, he would prefer to run. He's not I won't be he doesn't look to fight. As fighting it's a painful thing, and he's not very adept as a fighter. He knows how to swing. That's about it. But if there's more than him, this is going to be looking for a way out of the fight. It's not gung ho running in, bones flying.
Uh, Weird clarification too. You said shifter is so for shifter, what type of shifter are you kind of adopting as far as kind of the general appearance?
What
Uh,
type?
yeah, yeah. So for shifter, they say that there's actually what is it under the Mordenkainen's or even just the regular time where it shows shifter. So let me just quickly look this up. They typically list the yeah.
The
So they
type of shifting. The type of shifting.
the type of shifting that you have access to. So, as a bonus action, you can assume a more bestial appearance. This transformation lasts for 1 minute until you die, or until you revert to your normal appearance as a bonus action. When you shift, you gain temporary hit points equal to 2 times your proficiency bonus. You can shift a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So, is there a particular one that you feel is going to be more in line of what you want as far as lore reasons or as far as how you would like to play? Like, because it looks like there's 4 options here. The thing note as
I
well
would
that it doesn't explicitly state also because like they say at the top that there is your ancestor associated with like where tiger, where rat, etc. And that tells you what the shifting option is. But you can be whatever you want as far as your appearance if it makes sense to you story wise, right? Of like what you want it to be. It's just a matter of just figuring out what mechanically you're going to be choosing.
right. Yeah, because I see the choices of Beast Hide, Longtooth, Swift Stride, and Wild Hunt.
Mhm.
And I think what would make sense for him as a character, I think Swift Stride, as he'd be trying just to get away. I Beast Hide seems like a the +1 to the armor class. It sounds nice.
Mhm.
But I don't know. It seems like either Beast Hide or Swift Stride. As with Beast Hide, I feel like he'd be using it for protection. As please stop hitting me, and his you maybe see his like skin toughen up a little bit more, and his maybe teeth sharpen up a little bit. It's between those two for me.
Okay.
I I think I'll just go with Beast Hide for now, as to it being you know, a reactionary thing.
Sure. So, I guess also just kind of briefly describe kind of like so shifter. So, what kind of appearance does it take? Does Benjamin take appearance of, or like kind of generally, do they have the general appearance of, or kind of when they shift into this, what do they turn more into?
What would be the one animal, I guess, that Benjamin would be exposed to the most when living at Clusterrock? The one type of animal he would probably see in the streets the most, that he's had the most contact with and seeing. Because I envisioned it, it's a place that's he's only known of this place, and his ancestry may be lycanthropy, but um, unless that he takes on just the sharpened teeth of either a werewolf or maybe a were rat between the two.
I would say so. So part of what it's saying here is that for shifters, they have that lycanthrope ancestry. So I think it's up to you, really, kind of what you want your ancestry to be. If you would like it to be a were rat, a werewolf, or something of that close to that appearance, because it doesn't necessarily have to be a were rat or a werewolf. I mean, it's just something that basically it's equivalent of like it's a beast touched element, right? That
Hmm.
enables you to shift. So it's up to you, really, of what that appearance should be.
Right. In that case, I would think it would be kind of more of a threatened, like a mixture between like a threatened dog and a threatened rat. And his his teeth would elongate slightly and claws come out, and almost looks like his hair kind of gets a little bit of hackles. Eyes go a little bit wild. As he's probably seen people kick a rat or kick a dog or two in the town, um, and would have this same, visceral beast-like reaction. Going with I almost want to lean directly into rat, um, as I feel like he would also just be friendly to the rats that he sees in Clusterrock. He's a bit of a friendly big brother type in the town. That's his people. That's who he knows.
All right, so we've got then Colin's doing Benjamin, the shifter, kind of more rat-like, were-rat in appearance. Uh, the fighter with the Valda subclass, the Bone Knight. Okay, is there anything else that you think would be kind of important to know as far as like a class option, or just because right now it's like left with Cluster Rock with a note. So, anything else you'd like to kind of bring forward here before we go to Amanda?
Sure. I guess I'll briefly the background. I went with Urchin for the background.
Okay.
Um, just as it sounds. I'm pretty familiar with the streets of Clusterrock, I would say. In terms of the note that he was left with, he was originally left in Clusterrock as a baby with a note. The note said, "Please take him. I'm sorry." And then the letters "re" as the beginning of a word. Then the rest is torn away. Whenever he asks around, um, about who left him here as a baby, from the people who maybe raised him when he was there, he was raised as a takes a village style, is the town's baby now. The story constantly changes. The description of who left him, it's never the same. No one's ever really able to give him a straight answer. It's a little odd because someone had to remember who dropped him off as a baby, unless in Cluster Rock, discarded and babies left on the doorstep there is a common occurrence.
Sure.
Uh,
So right now we'll stick with kind of the broad.
mhm.
So you've definitely got some specifics, which is what I like.
Yeah,
I want some specifics. Once we find out stuff more about Amanda's character as well, I'll give the broad aspects of kind of the general areas of Cluster Rock, because there are
sure.
districts and there are some general ideas of what happens in certain districts. And it might help paint an inkling for you guys, because even though you're going to be working directly for Dr. Honeyeater in the Order of the Pale Raven, you'll have access to all of these areas, but these past districts will help to kind of maybe shape your backstory, as well as also maybe your both of your relationships regarding this. Um, okay, so basically, just really quick with that note, it says, "Please take him. I'm sorry." And there's like a little dash and then RE, and then that's it.
Yes, is it could
Okay.
be. There's really nothing else beyond what was torn away, as
Okay.
it looks like there was something else there, but it was ripped.
Please take him. I'm sorry. Really good baby. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so Amanda, you've spoken a little bit earlier in the past regarding what you wanted to play, but for the sake of it, if you want to tell where your ability scars are going, like Colin did, feel free. And also just kind of go into what you're planning on playing.
Gotcha. As far as ability scores go, well, backing up further, I am planning to play from Valda's a mousefolk ratling named Scrap. Um, Also picking my class from Valda's, and that is a War Mage, which is a caster that relies on cantrips for for their spell casting ability. Instead of using spell slots, they basically reflavor and utilize cantrips as their primary weapon of sort, instead of physical weapons and whatnot. So I'm
Or what
keeping.
subclass is that for again?
Sorry.
What subclass is that for again?
So it's the class is War Mage, and then there are subclasses within that, and the one
Oh,
I'm
you're okay. Okay.
yes, and I'm bouncing between different windows so I can see all the things.
It's a
Let's
completely
see.
original class from Valda's. Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
So she is a war mage, and there's different types based on kind of how you learn magic, how you utilize it. Um, Learning what we have about Arta's story and history, and I won't spoil anything further, but I think for her personality, she is kind of a well, let's roll the dice and see what happens sort of character. So she for war mages, just rough overview, they have different houses of sorts that are either based on strategy, so you have rook, knight, and so on. They're more honor based, whereas you have the games of chance, which are gambling and dice. So she is a dice war mage. Bringing up the description.
So cool. Yeah. I'm a fan.
I know if something horrible happens to Scrap, which I'm sure it will, given the scores I'm looking at, she may have to resurrect in one form or another.
The War Mage class is fascinating with all the different houses, and the House of Dice is
Oh,
just
it goes super in depth in here. Like I was seeing lots of other characters form in my mind just reading the different descriptions for, and it's really what I like about this is, wizards have the cool ability where they can be tooled in so many different ways, and this particular class seems to have a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Personalization that you can do with them. And what I like about Valda is they have like this handy kind of chart that gives you a brief overview. Oh yeah. So it'll give the name of the subclass and then a basic one-line description just so you can kind of get the flavor of each one.
yeah, it's
So
really
for
nice.
yeah. So House of Dice, gamblers with an innate power to control fate. So basically there are fate dice that I can roll that would be handed off to the DM, so they could potentially mess with fate with me as well. But I'm just excited by the idea of just kind of like, all right, let's see what happens. Kind of in her background, it was a pirate that grew up in Slicer Isle, particularly Port Ilse, which we'll find out more about. But she ended up raiding a ship that was full of infected individuals. When she returned to the ship, her captain was killed because he also was infected. She was young enough, they just strung her up, put her in a lifeboat, and sailed her down the river where she washed up at, where this adventure starts, basically. So she just kind of washed ashore in Clusterrock. But with the pirate background, just looking into that here.
And the pirate background, that's directly just from just base
Just
D&D, right?
base. Yep,
Right. Okay.
exactly. So my language is foul. I stretch the truth for the sake of a good story. I'm committed to people, crewmates, not to ideals. I'm loyal to my captain first, everything else second. And she has a luck charm, which is an old key that she managed to find when she was younger. She's always kept it because she hopes to find what the old key goes to, but she just has that strung around her neck.
All right. Is there anything else you want to go over of like about scrap or just kind of in general as far as like your anything else or
That's primarily it. I do need to figure out where to put these ability scores. The highest I have is a 0, and I've got a couple of those. So the rest of them are all negative ones. So
So really quick then also for my personal reference. So how long ago did Scrap end up stranded here in Cluster Rock? Because was she infected with something? And that's why she was infected with something, that's why she was kind of thrown off
where she
the
was
boat.
sailed downriver.
So how
Yeah,
long ago has she like how long has she been in Cluster Rock?
I would say she's been there maybe a year or 2, maybe year and a half.
Okay, so we've got some good baselines here. I'm really happy to hear about these characters of Scrap and Benjamin, joining that of the Order of the Pale Raven. So let's go into kind of, in general, just really briefly about Cluster Rock. Like, I'm not going to go super in depth. This is more to get a general idea of maybe just how you guys are associated with each other. So just some backgrounds here. So Cluster Rock, again, it's a small port city through the continental channel of Arta. The continental channel is this giant divide between the western continent of the Kingdom of Ol versus the eastern continent of the Kingdom of Kaz, which is the Dwarven Empire. And this small port city has a network of teleportation circles that are highly regulated by the Kaz Empire that allows for quick response and quarantine, because they've kind of taken up here as a way of studying the magical miasma, and they've allowed some individuals from all over the world to kind of come here as well to kind of study these diseases because it's affected this grand area of the Stillwake Marsh, kind of making it almost a super treacherous place to pass through. And so they're kind of looking for any kind of assistance hesitantly, of course, because they don't want too many foreigners coming in to kind of be on their mainland and everything like that. But they're fine with allowing some students and those of colleges and other mages that are trying to help them as best as they can. So these quarantines areas there's two what are known as Tempest Gate chambers that are in the city. One, which is in the Brackwater district, which is a very large area of the western side of the city that is full of shanty towns and dock areas and a lot of people that work kind of in the fields of the marsh, kind of further in, and as well as like on the right next to the city. And there's one that's in the Tall Moss district, which is kind of more of it's an older part of the city as well, but it's on the eastern side, northeastern side, and that's where a lot of the Dwarven Empire militants reside. That's where the governor's mansion is. That's where some of the major barracks are, and also just a few nobles that live there. The only real reason that most of people live here is kind of think of it kind of like a shit assignment of where they've offended someone in court. So you know what? You're going to be the governor of Clusterrock, or you're going to be living in Clusterrock to handle trade and stuff of that nature. That's not to say that there's not good trade in Clusterrock. It's just it's highly regulated because of infection and other things that can arise from transporting goods and services via magical and also infectious diseases. And so one thing to know about is the three major trades that are here are swamp apples, whiskey, timber, or sorry, not three, four, timber, and then swamp elephants.
And could you, um,
Yes?
could you, so what was that last one?
Swamp elephants?
I do have
need more
further
information.
follow-up questions.
Sure.
Follow-up question: what is a swamp elephant?
It's an elephant lives in a swamp. I don't know if I have to
Oh
do any
well,
clarification with that.
I should have known. Thank
Does
you.
it have fins, fronds growing from it somewhere?
So kind of not to go too farther into the backstory of this area. So the Dwarven Empire committed a genocide over 150 years ago, essentially, of the gnomish nation royal family. A lot of the Stillwake area was actually populated by gnomes, and one of their primary mounts were swamp elephants. And these swamp elephants are not super large; they're only about 5 foot high at the highest. They're tiny elephants. So basically, they kind of look like a cross between a woolly mammoth and an Indian elephant. I forgot the exact name of I think it's a Borneo elephant. I kind of modeled them after. They're 5 foot high at the highest, and it's just so basically that's what these elephants are. Um, so they herd these swamp elephants. They get their ivory from them. They also get some light swamp fur, basically. But then they also use them to get swamp apples to make the whiskey and to get timber. So swamp elephants. So yeah.
Okay.
And so there are three major districts that I was talking about. So there was the Brackwater, which is full of a lot of the older districts, and like that's where a lot of the infected people are. That's not to say you can't still have infected people that are sick that are living in the Tall Moss area. It's just Brackwater. If you're really sick, that's where they put you. Like, they basically make sure that like areas are segmented off. And there's actually a quarantine zone between Brackwater and Tall Moss called the Calm. The Calm is where you're actually able to go into because you work with Doctor Honeyeater, and that's where a lot of the doctors and students live. It's kind of like there's an eastern side, or excuse me, a western side, which is of Brackwater, the Calm, which is like a small little area, and there's several gates kind of getting into it, and on the eastern side is that of the Tall Moss. And yeah, so basically you'd be working primarily in the Calm and in Brackwater. You don't really have the opportunity to go into Tall Moss as much because you've been sick, right?
Right.
So something to be aware of for that.
Tall, then moss, or is it one word?
Almost one word, Tomas. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it for the most part. I mean, there's also off the coast there are three small islands directly into the channel. These three small islands are called Rot, Hollow, and Shatter. So Rot houses the actual most infectious individuals, whether that's a magical disease or an actual affliction. It is beyond like level 9 quarantine. That is where you basically go to die. The other one is called Hollow, which houses an offshore storage area in case of need of mass quarantine. So it's kind of like a general reserve that the Empire kind of maintains and kind of puts in through trade a little bit. And then there's the third island, Shatter, which houses a minor naval base for the Kaz Empire. So out of those areas, it sounds as though just, and I don't want to make assumptions here, based off of your affliction, Collin, for Benjamin, he would most likely be in Brackwater before he started going into the Calm to work for Doctor Honeyeater. And as far as yourself, Amanda, for Scrap, I guess it just depends on kind of how you guys met up. Did you feel as though both of you just met up, like you just suddenly were recruited by Doctor Honeyeater and like, oh, this is my coworker now? Or do you feel like you would have known each other at any point? Or do you want to have known each other at some point in the past? I guess this really depends on your personal preference.
I feel like
Um,
since go ahead, sorry.
no, I'm thinking that was a thinking.
Got it. Well, I feel like since Scrap has lived there for a year at least, she would have run into Benjamin, maybe not known him on a personal level until we both were in the service of Dr. Honeyeater. So kind of like, oh, I've seen you around town, and oh, now we're on the same shift. How's it going? Sort of thing.
Right. hmm Would there be very many mousefolk of the? You said mousefolk ratkin,
Rattling. So
rattling.
the Mousefolk was the overall, and they had, sorry, overall race, and then they had two sub races, Mouseling, Rattling,
And I should
based in Valda.
also preface this also with the fact of it with this world. So I've made it so that if you have a comparative race that you want to play that's in a different source material, so Ratling is from the Mousefolk from Valda's, but however, there are multiple resources available for different Mousefolk, Ratfolk, and stuff. So it really just depends on kind of what the flavor was for your abilities and whatever you'd like to do. So just to make sure that everyone is aware that this is particularly from Valda's. So if you're some reason you're listening to this and you're going like, well, wait a minute, I don't remember this ability happening, and for this rat folk or for just be aware that's what we're playing from. Sorry,
Are
you
there
gonna
very many rattling or rat folk living within in the Brackwater district or in Clusterrock in general?
So I would say that the way it works is that, without going too far into the backstory, I mean, I've given a little bit to you guys, but we'll kind of make it more clear as we go along, kind of through natural storytelling of roles and the like. But in this world, there was the Bloodied Horde, which was the predominantly rat folk, but other beast races and other races, humans, dwarves that have maybe been expats, that kind of stuff, that came to invade into the eastern continent, but were beaten back. So rat folk directly can trace their origins back to the island that was the Bloodied Horde, which was the island of Orst. So there can be rat folk in other areas. I would just say, because you're a pirate, that makes sense that you would be here. There probably wouldn't be many rat folk unless they were sailors that have been working for various shipping companies and the like. So in the city itself, there probably aren't going to be many rat folk. You'd be a bit of anomaly living there because it just depends on kind of like, not many people are going to take up residence in a town that's directly associated with that of the plague. So,
Okay.
uh,
I
yeah,
would
so
say then in that case, Benjamin he likes to help. He's kind of a big brother type. Since he was raised here, he likes to make sure that everyone else he helps out wherever he can. Um, the proverbial shirt off his back. If someone else is too sick to do something, he'll go over and run their errand for them. He's just the local big brother. Oh, it's Benjamin. And he's if I would say since um, uh, Amanda's character is being an anomaly, he would probably be like, oh, I don't see very much of your type around here. I feel like he would probably what's your introduce himself as Benjamin. What's your name? If he upon first meeting, as he's pretty friendly. And he would he would call her Miss Scrap. Oh, okay, Miss Scrap, nice to meet you. Bye.
Scrap was my mother's name.
But yeah, I would say he'd probably see her around and and refer to her probably constantly as oh, Miss Scrap, hi. Um, I'd
Gonna go
like
over
to
well with
imagine
the pirate.
upon first meeting, I'd like to imagine that he'd probably like either kneel or try to like bend over to talk to her. Um, and I with a part don't kneel over me.
And
Um,
face, don't do that.
oh, sorry. Okay. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, I
really
would say
quick,
we've
then,
seen her around town then, I guess.
really quick, actually. Then, yeah, so you were saying Benjamin stands at what, 5 foot? What exactly?
About 5'10", 5'11".
5'10",
I'd say
and
5'10". If he's 5'11", 5'10" because he's hunched from his bones. So
how tall is Scrap?
She's about 4 foot nothing.
Okay, all right. So just to make sure we got the general, so we all have it in our mind's eye then, associated of
Mm.
mhm.
all right. So does that? I mean, this is purely your guys's. This is in your field right now to decide of your relationship and everything like that. So I guess it really depends if you both agree on that as far as the general relationship that, you know, Scrap arrived about a year and a half ago. Probably, I guess it really depends on like how I think Benjamin would have found her and then just kind of struck up a conversation and just kind of generally told her like, hey, there's some areas to go here, just kind of big brother type. And then you both kind of ended up in the service of Doctor Honeyeater. So kind of an amicable situation, not direct friends. If I'm too much to go into yet, but it's more of like, oh yeah, I know you, like that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
I seen you. Miss Scrap.
Okay. For Benjamin, you said it takes a village. Is there anyone in particular? And I'm going to read off a couple of districts here. So in the Brackwater districts, there are sub districts that exist. Like this is not going to be a situation of like,
Good.
but there they will
Microscope.
locations will get more like they'll become more as evident as they go on. But there's in the Brackwater, there's Trunk Sour, Owl Ralnor, which is also known as Small Town, and the Brinewood Docks. Trunk Sour is a district that predominantly works in harvesting in the marshes and swamps, swamp apples, wood, swamp elephants. So they do a lot of kind of milling and then distilling of swamp apples and also kind of general husbandry for swamp elephants and the like. There's Al Ralnor, which is a small town where most gnomes live in this area. These are either descendants from the royal families and noble lines that have been almost pretty much wiped out, or even just kind of the general populace that live here. It's a good place for like a for area. It's a good area for food and shelter. It's one of the older districts because this is where predominantly gnomes used to live. And then there's the Brinewood Docks, which that's all fishing, like fishing up and down the Continental Divide, going further into the Continental Divide, like further north, and then also they handle blacksmithery and shops and general areas. So I guess it really depends on kind of like because of Benjamin was raised takes a village. Where would you say Benjamin would potentially spend most of his time? And would there be an in particular interesting individual, maybe? Because I can't imagine, like, even though it takes a village, would there be someone that you feel that he would connect with more in a respective area?
If I were someone who were looking to drop a baby off in a place that would have the biggest chance of survival with a note, I think I would drop them off in small town and hope for the best. Um, I think that he probably would have been just raised by a bunch of just by the people in small town and learn to, I guess, just learn to live from there. In terms like of a specific person, I guess, are the people of this town generally more of a friendly sort? Are they how would they have taken the arrival of a sudden baby?
It's not uncommon. I mean, in the sense that, like, people come to this area all the time to come to die. So it's kind of given a lot of, or come to live out the rest of their existence because of their infection. So it's not a dreary place, I should say, all the time. It's more kind of like the mentality, especially for people that have been living there for years and years, is just kind of a this is what we have to live with. It is what it is kind of situation. um,
Got
because
it.
they know that there is sometimes the glimmer of hope that could be that like they might find out that there is a doctor in the calm or a young surgeon or a young alchemist that is testing out a new treatment and they might get partially cured or given um, some kind of treatment to help them throughout the day-to-day life. But a lot of mentality is it's not overly hostile. I mean, obviously, if you go to the Brinewood docks, you're going to be encountering more like pirates and people that are just operating a trade, so it's going to be a bit more gruff and tough. But yeah, in most areas, it's going to be mostly people are just like, yeah, here's what it is. I mean, yep, here's
Okay.
another.
I think then that would be perfect because I would think growing up, Benjamin would see this around him and just see people who are there. They're there, they're infected, they're there to die, and his his sickness is just pain in his bones. He would try to shoulder that, and I can live with pain, and I want to make sure that others are able to at least see me give him a smile, and I can help him in any way I can. And so
Okay,
he would try to give back, and he started real early trying to become not just a burden but one that helps real early on.
sure.
So he would if he I can go fishing. I can go down to the Brinewood docks and fish and bring back some food for people. You don't have to get up. I can do it. Type of attitude.
Okay, it's good to know. So kind of highly involved in the community. From what I'm getting here.
Very much so.
So
You'd like to everybody is brothers and sisters, pretty much.
okay. So this will help. So obviously, again, when you guys will get me your sheets for when you, because we'll have to go into kind of like what you're proficient in as far as everything else goes, and what your new stats will be when you get to level 3 and everything like that. So keep that in mind when you're picking your various proficiencies associated with that. But that makes sense to me that you'd have a bit more of a history with that of the town if you were raised here, especially. So scrap. What given that Benjamin would be kind of leading you around here, I'm guessing you'd been here for about a year and a half or so. What would the scraps first inclination be having to been stranded in this town? Because once you're here, like you're basically floated down here, right? So you floated down here in your boat, you came to the docks. Um, it's not hard to see so like because you said you were infected. Is
Yeah,
it an evident infection? Is it something that like people can see upon you that they know that it's something that you're infected with something?
I would think so, just because it would have been immediately recognized by her shipmates, and that's why they tied her up and sent her downriver. Basically, just nope, you look messed up by
Yeah. How does that
something.
manifest?
Well, that's what I was curious about. So, are there for the infections that we have? Is this a something we'd roll that affects us in different ways beyond our stats?
So I'm going to be playing with infections and diseases and stuff because I'm going to be using the resources associated. I was originally thinking about rolling up a disease that you would have, but I think narratively it makes sense to still simply just say that the ability scores that you have are reflective of the disease that you have. So if you want to say there's something specific about that is reflected from the ability scores on you, so like say, let's look at your scores again. You got 9, 9, 11, 10, 9, 8. So really, I guess it depends on kind of how you want that to be shown upon yourself, reflected in your ability scores, right? So I know that's
Yeah.
a lot of pressure to place on you of like, all right, tell me what you're infected with. What do you
What
got?
you got?
You got
What are
you
you
got
in for?
you got fantasy flu.
Um, I kind of almost imagined it was maybe not boils necessarily, but some sort of rash or abrasion that looked messed up, kind of. Something that would not it would be debilitating. She'd be exhausted a lot, I think, just based on these stats. She's not batting 1,000 on anything, I would say.
I wanna just because I like the idea that we're kind of building into this a little bit more collaboratively with this world because I like the idea then with Benjamin he's got this brittle bone disease or some kind of bone disease that has afflicted him that has been warped by that of Doctor Honeyeater. Um, do you feel as though so you're a war mage and this is something that you grew up with basically or that you kind of learned while you were a pirate on Slicer Isle or
Yep, I imagine she kind of always felt like she could access some sort of power, but as they started raiding ships and things, she started reading some of the books that were found. Like she would curl up instead of taking from the treasure hoard, she'd find herself with a book and start practicing stuff. So that's how she learned as she grew.
Okay.
So self-taught
Um,
in that way.
all right. So then for this abrasion, do you want to name what this would be? Like
Oh geez.
this is a recognizable disease, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
And
This
surely I
goes
go open up to the floor here if you want to, if either one of you wants to name a, because here's the thing. The magical miasma area is so foreign and so strange that it's to the point
Right.
of where they are discovering new strains of diseases, magical or not, because of just what this thing does. Like no one knows the true effects of it. That's why people come here to study it.
How quickly would you say they kicked you off that ship and you said they killed the captain?
one of the things because she basically her captain is someone she followed most. I think he was a little bit older, maybe he was on his way out, basically, got infected, they sliced him down, decided to send her downriver. So I think
It sounds
whatever
like
it was,
something
it
that
was
it
it was
contagious maybe
aggressive.
because
Yeah.
yeah. I feel like they would not want it around the others, and that's why they quickly got rid of you and the captain. How fast would you say that upon you finding out that you were infected with it, how quickly do you think that would have happened, them removing you and getting you away from them?
I mean, I almost kinda think of it like a movie zombie bite. Like, you recognize there's a wound that's gonna start to turn,
Oh, it's
basically.
early effects. So kind of an early sign,
Right.
basically. Okay.
Yep. And they just recognize they're like, "There you
Get
go."
out. You gotta get out.
Yeah.
Do you think that would have been something that they were
Can I
like oh, go ahead.
sorry,
Oh,
I was about to posit a name. So it's like a abrasion rash, right?
yeah.
Scald. So by the time
Ooh.
you get to the last stages, like I would say, I'm wondering if you would be okay
Oh.
with this. We're basically the last stage is like you're just completely covered, and it looks like you've been burned, like you've been almost like
Ooh.
dumped in hot metal.
Okay, yeah.
It's called scald.
Scald.
Scald it is. Okay, yeah. Oh, that is awesome. So she
That's great.
has I've been
Not
drawing
great, but
sketches of her. We're right. I've been drawing sketches of her essentially, and she has hair that falls down to one side of her face. I imagine that that's covering one side of her over her eye, up and around. She's got this like looks like a crispy burn going on in her face down the side of one part of her body.
were you close with with the pirate crew? Were you all not like I don't know, buddies or just like like a coworker acquaintance situation? Were you pretty tight with them?
I'd imagine so she grew up on an island largely populated by pirates. I think her mentality is they were like family, but yeah, I get it. You know? So she's
Right.
bitter slightly, but she's also like, "Yeah, I'd have done the same thing."
So
So,
you think
I
that would
feel
have been something that they did? They didn't really. They weren't maliciously getting rid of you, but like you got to go type
I
of
wonder
ordeal.
if the old captain, his scald was so much worse, so much faster because of his age. They knew he wasn't gonna make it, but they're like, "There's a chance for you, go," sort of thing. So she recognized it as a mercy, but also was like, "Yeah, fuck you guys," you know?
So that's good. I like this a lot. Would you say then, kind of in the area that you had worked in, kind of makes sense, kind of your backstory, that you'd be primarily working in the Brinewood docks with any work that you could find.
I would
Um,
say, yeah.
and it's a weird thing too to kind of posit this whole thing of like everyone's infectious, but at the same time, like there's multiple. I have to kind of make sure that everyone is like you're both aware of this. Is that this is a very infectious area with magical disease and afflictions and stuff, and to the point of where not everyone that's afflicted can be infected with like multiple diseases or even just with the same disease, depending on where you are. It's a matter of just kind of like it's almost random at times, which is why these people are sent here because they don't know how to deal with it. There is still procedure, of course, with any kind of quarantine, with any kind of trade associated with that. There are cleansing areas that can actually remove minor infection and diseases for use in trade. Um, I mean, it's a bit of a weird thing to think that like a city that is quarantined and plague infested does operate in trade. But I mean, it's a matter of the times that they are in, right? Of where they have access to swamp elephants and whiskey and swamp apples, and it's necessary for making a whiskey, so they kind of have to still trade in it in timber. And timber is used for everything, so it doesn't necessarily matter if yeah, it's perfectly fine. So just be aware of that also going into this. So it's not a situation where I would say that you will always need to be worrying about like, I don't know if I should touch that. Like it's it's more of a matter of just be aware that like people are sick. And it's only in very extreme cases that I will probably have like, okay, well, this might be something that you probably shouldn't touch, like obviously, then that would probably institute some kind of rule as necessitating a either maybe an aggressive form of your disease forming or potentially an additional one created on top of that. So just be aware of that. Okay, so I think that helps a lot with establishing some general backstory here. Is there anything else that you guys want to go over at all?
I guess I could just give as I know Scrap went over her the characteristics that come with her character. I forgot to do that
Oh yeah, your
with
ideals and stuff.
Benjamin.
Yeah.
Um, as again, I did succumb to the dice roll on this, and it kind of leaned perfectly into it.
Oh,
Um,
these ones you also did random, the ideals and everything like that.
yes,
Okay.
with a couple of his personality traits, I bluntly say what other people are hinting at or hiding. Um, like if someone's looking at Benjamin and it's just like, yeah, I look terrifying, right? I got it. Just rip the band-aid off. That looks gross. Great. Um, just he'll just say it. Life is way too short, so you gotta just say it. And I like to squeeze into small places where no one else can get to me.
That's an ideal or what that's a
As a
flaw?
personality trait
That's a flaw. It's like
with an urchin, with an urchin, as that
it was
sometimes
made for me.
it's like this
I
I can
sense it.
fit in this spot just so that I can this is a comfortable enough spot for me to I don't like to be spread out. I just want to be in this little corner here.
Right. Okay.
Um, and then as for ideals, respect. All people, rich or poor, deserve respect. For bonds, take of this what you will. I didn't really. I'm not quite sure what to make of this, so this might make more sense to you. I sponsor an orphanage to keep others from enduring what I was forced to endure. So I figured I guess I would just turn that into I'm a big brother who just goes around and
Hmm.
helps people acclimate because of the same was done for me, something like that. Because I don't know if there's an orphanage within a small town.
Uh, I would say that they're probably like it wasn't something that directly I was thinking of when I was creating the town. I mean, it makes sense, obviously, because
Could have been where I
you-
was, maybe
you're
where I was put or something.
you're gonna have families that come here that have been ostracized, and not all the parents are gonna survive, and there's gonna be some kids that survive, etc. So yeah, I would think that there would be. So we'll hash that out maybe a little bit more once we get more into the actual episode and the arc.
And
Okay.
then as for the flaw was, if I'm outnumbered, I will run away from a fight.
Okay, so that was that really perfectly fit into what your character is. Okay.
Because he's not um not the hero.
Clickety clack, I gotta get out of here.
But yeah, that was the characteristics
Okay,
with Urchin there.
sure.
How would you
Flaw.
interpret with the background that they say it says the background feature of city secrets? The secret patterns and flow to cities and confined passages through the urban sprawl that others would miss. When you are not in combat, you and companions you lead can travel between any two locations in the city twice as fast as your speed would allow.
I mean, that makes sense to me. If you've been living most of your life in that of the Brackwater district, you're able to get through those districts pretty quickly, and you know
Back of
your
my
way
hand.
around. Yeah. Maybe less so in the Calm, and especially not in Talmos. Like I said, you will have the ability to go into Talmos because of your position with that of the Order of the Pale Raven. kind of going into it is that you'll be given special uniforms, which are the equivalent of like plague doctor outfits. But they're meant to contain your infection, not to infect
Great.
other. Yeah. So basically you're able to go into the city of Thomas, but it's kind of almost like a beacon of like the nobility and people that are there will know that you are with the Order of the Pale Raven and you are infected. So they'll give you kind of
Here
a
comes
wide
the sick person.
here comes a sick person. But at the same time, they'll still give you a due of respect because of the fact that not many are allowed to go into Talmos, uh, especially because of just your status, but because of who you're working for, because doctors and etc. don't pick their assistants lightly. And the only reason you're allowed into this area is because you're part of this order. So just be aware of that. I would say also, so because it's Order of the Pale Raven, uh, you've got your predominant. I keep going in different tangents because I'm excited to just talk about this, but also just to let you guys know what you have. But
Mhm.
so for your outfit, you've got your plague outfit, which allows you to go into Talmos, and you can choose. So a predominant part of your outfit is going to be a champagne white, because it's like it's not going to be pure white because it's dingy, dirty, that kind of stuff. But there will be elements to your plague outfit when you go into Tomos that you can say are a particular color or a person or personal affectation. So just be aware that a majority of it is going to be a champagne plague white, but your accents as well as other kind of accoutrements that you would like to have upon your plague doctor outfit would be your own. So just be aware of that. That's something we can go into in the actual episode as well, but just be aware of that. Yeah, so for Urchin, you would definitely have more status in that of Brackwater. You could figure out there in Brackwater.
And as a question in terms of uh, Benjamin's origin comes with a language, an additional language.
Mhm.
I'm actually at a loss. Would I Gnomish,
Yep.
I
You could
guess.
yeah, so if you want to say gnomish, because so something to be aware of too is that you're in the Kaz Empire. So what languages do you get already? From Shifter? Common, I'm assuming, and then a
Common,
Thundercatcher.
and then I had one option.
So I would say that it makes sense to be gnomish if you're raised in small town. Kaz is predominantly, dwarven. There's still other races that exist there upon Kaz, but it is predominantly the Empire is dwarven. So it's up to you, but I would say gnomish makes sense to me as far as the language you would choose.
Yeah, I was trying to. I don't think it comes with two languages. As it looks like it shows
Even with your background, it doesn't come with two languages or an additional language of a choice or anything.
this race follows new options for Tasha's. You'll be able to customize options like if you continue building the character. Your character can speak, read, and write Common and one other language that you and your DM agree. So it would just be one. So
Okay. So I mean, if you want to do gnomish, that makes sense to me. If you were raised in small town, so
yes, that seems like a good thing. I'd like that.
I think for Scrap, it makes the most sense, raiding in the waters of the Shattered Isles, that she would know Dwarvish, or Dwarven rather, because,
okay,
you get on the ground as
right.
she's raiding these ships.
For your languages, you have common, and then I'm assuming, is there a language associated that with the mouse folk, or is that because I mean, basic
Yeah.
assumption would be that you'd speak whatever the rat folk mace language would be. So whatever you have there for mouse folk language, just assume that that is what it is, rat folk, like that kind of thing. So you speak three then. You speak rat folk, common, and dwarven,
We're also with the pirate background, Thieves' Cant is in there as well.
and thieves' cant. Okay.
Mm.
Any other particulars that you guys would like to know or would like to share?
What region is the whiskey made in the city here?
What region of the for the district?
Yeah.
That's trunk sour.
Oh, it is trunk sour. Okay.
Yeah.
Like sour, as in like sour apple spelled.
Yeah. And you would know this too. Well, actually, no, I don't know if I should save that. I'll save that for the. I'll actually save it. That's something else.
Ooh.
That's
Spoilers.
can't give it all
um,
away in the first session 0. Come on, like you gotta have a little bit of mystery.
No. I know it all right now.
Amanda, we spoke about this very briefly, but are you going to when we finally start working together, are you going to call him or me Benjamin, or are you going to give say Benny?
Benny.
I think it would either be Benny or Bones, one of those 2. But I
That's
don't think
perfect.
which would she know that he has that ability? Does he just whip that out at parties, or is this something that he kind of quietly has?
So here's the thing, is that this also kind of establishes a bit of another timeline. So for Doctor Honeyeater, uh, will would you say that this bone development for you, your boniness, uh, has developed recently with Doctor Honeyeater arriving?
Um,
Because
I
Doctor
would.
Honeyeater, kind of in
How
that
long has
opening,
he been there?
right? So kind of the opening I gave, kind of give the inclination that he's been here for a while, but at the same time, we can rewrite it a little bit of where I would say that he arrived about 6 months ago. Does that work for you, or do you want to change it? We can change it. We can change it. If where Honeyeater's been around for a while,
Like maybe he's visited before.
yeah, you know what? That makes sense. He's a visitor for it, so he has worked with you in the past to develop your disease of making, but now he's actually officially taken up residence.
I feel like if he's visited before when I was younger, his age right now is I've gone what he's 20, he's in his 20s. Benjamin is
Okay.
when he was a younger kid, teenager. He always likes to help, but he constantly, unfortunately, have his arm in a cast or something in a makeshift cast, and he'd always be trying to help and carry things, and constantly wincing and in pain. And he might have seen that and said, you know, I can help with that. And, and sure, okay, I'd love to be able to not always maybe he's like, if I wasn't in a cast, I could always carry something for so and so.
Hmm.
And maybe upon hearing that, he offered, well, maybe I can help.
So then I would say, so would this be a recent development then of your? This would not be a recent development of your boniness of taking the bones out, or would you say this is recent?
I would say I've at least had it for maybe upon a recent one of his visits before he was permanently here. So maybe I've realized, because I wouldn't have tried to unsheath a sword immediately upon getting whatever serum that he might have given me. But I think it might have come out as a reflex at one point that I realized maybe recently within the past maybe a few months before he arrived. And I realized, and when I had a fight or flight reflex at one point, it just shot out of my hand.
So it's basically he came, he helped you with his treatment, and then when he left, it developed. And when he finally came back, you're like, "Hey, look what I can do!"
Yeah,
Shink.
this
And
this
then
this comes out now, and he wears the gloves to kind of
that
you
shouldn't
know
come out now. So-
yeah, but it does.
okay.
Would he know what a bone knight is?
You
Would
know,
he kind of expect? Would he kind of expect?
I would
They're showing it's showing its powers now. I
I would
understand.
say I would say some elements of this will have to kind of remain in the dark.
That
But
works
but
perfectly for me.
it's more so I wanted to make sure we kind of understand a general timeline associated with how everyone met and how everyone has kind of come into place in this area.
So, but not like it just happened before the curtain fell, our curtain rises. But
Sure.
it's been a while, and he's been trying to learn how to manage it and how it sheathes and unsheathes, and is even taken up wearing gloves. So he covers up the slit where it comes out, so people aren't unnerved.
Anything else?
Hmm, I'm excited.
I am excited as well. I'm also, I should say, deathly afraid. So,
So are
um,
we.
'Cause they can
oh,
take a step outside and just, oh well, oops.
I'll better roll up the 5th character.
well, not even just that, more but like, something to that every podcast host should have is a general healthy sense of fear is to make sure that everything is going okay. So that's my general fear, but I will make sure to hide that well enough, at least as best as I can, or at least to give a good veneer of confidence. for the fear beneath. But anyway, so if nothing else really needs to be said, then I think we've got at least the beginnings of a great new arc to be started here, of that of the Plaguelands. If you are listening to this, I would hope that you are enjoying us just kind of talking the shit for the most part, of just trying to figure out how these characters interact and what's going to be used. If any of what you have described here sounds interesting to you, again, like Valda's, or even the concept that we have decided to do, which again, stupid idea. But if any of the other concepts involving Valda's, I would say just check it out. I'll be sure to put it somewhere in the show description so you can find that for yourself, of where you can get that. I will also put other additional resources that I will be using through most of the Plaguelands. And for anyone that is going to be joining us also in the future, the general structure of how this will go is that there will be the first part of the episode, which will be edited down for, fluff and other things like that, and we'll have some musical accompaniment, some sound effects, and some other general cinematic elements that'll help to kind of hopefully boost this even further into the realms of wonderful imagination. The later half of the episode will be kind of a cool down period, where after we're done with kind of the session, we'll do about a 30-minute discussion about the mechanics we used, about how we feel about the world, how we're feeling about our characters here. Because that's one aspect I feel as though that is talked about a few times in certain podcasts, is you've got the general actual play that people do, but then you have to wait a long time to get to the very end of when they want to do a general cooldown of everything. And something about that, having it being a fresh idea, a fresh in your mind, as far as like how you're feeling about the world, how you're feeling about your character, how you're feeling about, oh, I really like that part, or I didn't really like how this mechanic plays out, and I was just not having good luck with the dice, like that kind of thing. I feel it would be something nice to talk about. We'll see how this format plays out. I mean, we're ultimately joining a large sea of actual play podcasts and other things of this nature, but I feel as though this will be something that you'll enjoy with us as we develop along with further stories and mechanics and other systems. And I'll be sure to at some point do a more formal exit, but is there anything else you guys would like to talk about? Anything you want to plug, as far as like anything at all? Like, just, do you have a recommendation for any? Oh, Amanda?
Where the podcast is being hosted?
Sure. So as of right now, from this recording, so it should be hosted via Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or any other reputable podcast hosting platform. But you should be able to find it Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you do find us there, please be sure to give us a 5-star rating or a review, or recommend us to your friends. This will help us grow and help us ideally get bigger to develop more systems, more stories, and potentially in the future, maybe get some guests. Because ideally, I'd like to bring on more people to just explore certain arcs. And at some point, when we do get this further along, we'll potentially vote on what arcs you would all like to see continued. So we'll maybe end up the Plaguelands after a few episodes, and then maybe, I don't know, a few years down the line, well, maybe not a few years, maybe a few months down the line, you'll decide that through your vote that, hey, let's return back to the Plaguelands for an arc or two. But yeah, you can find the podcast at Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can see us, and I will be developing this here soon, at Blue Sky and Instagram for further connections. And I'll also be sure to leave anything else. But if anyone else has anything else to plug, like recommendations for something, like you got a movie, you got a show, you got something you want to recommend, or just
Valda's. Go pick it
Oh
up.
yeah.
Go pick up Valda's.
hashtag not sponsored. But yeah,
And
so I'd like
please,
to thank everyone for joining us for this session 0. We'll see how it's edited down and everything like that. But I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in, and welcome on this journey for the Tables and Fables podcast. You can say bye.
I was going to say, I was going to say, I was waving. I'm sorry, y'all didn't see it.
A lovely, lovely thing to do for
we're
this
both
medium.
maybe we're just like bye.
Audio,
No,
audio
but
medium. Just wave. Just
we
Bye,
are
everybody.
waiting. Bye.
bye, everyone.